Today, I will tell you the story of how a foreign journalist tried to embarrass President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso on live TV, but his reply was so powerful, so clever, that the whole studio went silent. This is not just a story about politics. This is a story about respect, wisdom, and the power of words. Stay with me, because you will not want to miss a single second of what happened next. The day started early in Ouagadougou. The city was already awake before the sun rose. Street vendors were setting up their stalls, selling bread, fruit, and tea. Motorbikes zipped through the streets. People hurried to work, and children walked to school in groups, laughing and talking. But inside the government building, the mood was different. It was serious. Security guards checked every person who entered. Journalists lined up, showing their badges, carrying cameras and notepads. Some were from local newspapers, others from big international news channels. Everyone was talking about the president's press conference. Some said it would be just another speech. Others whispered that something big might happen. Inside the main hall, the air was cool and heavy. Rows of chairs faced a long table with microphones. Flags of Burkina Faso and other countries stood behind the stage. The journalists took their seats, some chatting quietly, others checking their equipment. The room was full, but everyone was waiting for one person, President Ibrahim Traoré. He was young, but he had already become a symbol of hope for many people. Some called him a hero, some called him a dreamer, but everyone agreed he was different from other leaders. When President Traoré entered, the room changed. He walked in with a calm step, not rushed, not nervous. He wore a simple dark suit, but he looked comfortable, like he belonged there. He greeted the journalists with a nod and a smile. He sat down, adjusted the microphone, and looked around the room. For a moment, he said nothing. He just looked at the faces in front of him. Some were friendly, some were serious, some were curious. Then he began to speak. He started by thanking everyone for coming. He spoke about the importance of the press, about freedom of speech, about listening to each other. He said, "We are here to talk, to learn, to find answers together." His voice was steady, not too loud, not too soft. He talked about the country's problems. He talked about poverty, about jobs, about schools and hospitals. He did not hide the truth. He said, "We have many problems, but we also have many dreams. We are working hard, step by step, to make things better." He talked about the young people of Burkina Faso, about their energy, their ideas, their hope for the future. He talked about the farmers, the teachers, the doctors, the mothers and fathers who worked every day to build a better life. He said, "We are strong because we are together. We are strong because we do not give up." The journalists listened. Some nodded, some wrote notes, some looked at him with sharp eyes, ready to ask hard questions. The president finished his opening speech and said, "Now, I will take your questions." Hands went up. The first questions were about the economy. A local journalist asked about jobs for young people. The president answered with numbers, with stories, with plans for new training centers and small businesses. Another journalist asked about healthcare. The president talked about new clinics, about doctors being trained, about vaccines for children. The questions kept coming. Some were easy, some were hard. The president answered each one, sometimes with facts, sometimes with stories, always with respect. Then, the moment came. A foreign journalist, a woman with short hair and a blue jacket, stood up. She did not wait for the microphone. She spoke loudly, her voice clear and sharp. "Mr. President," she said, "how can you talk about hope when your country is still poor? People are hungry. There is fighting. There is corruption. What do you say to people who think you are not doing enough?" Her words were like a stone thrown into a quiet pond. The room went silent. Some people looked at her in surprise. Some looked at the president, waiting to see what he would do. President Traoré did not get angry. He did not look upset. He just smiled, a small, calm smile. He looked at the journalist and said, "Thank you for your question, my sister." His voice was soft but strong. He said, "In Africa, we have a saying, when the roots are deep, there is no reason to fear the wind." The journalist looked confused. She did not understand. The other journalists leaned forward, waiting to hear more. The president continued, "You see, our problems are real. We do not hide from them, but our roots, our culture, our unity, our hope are deeper than any problem we face. You ask about progress. Let me tell you a story, an African tale, that answers your question better than any speech." He began to tell his story. Long ago, in a small village, there was a wise old man. He was the storyteller. One day, a stranger came to the village. He looked around and laughed at the people's homes, their clothes, their fields. He said, "How can you call this progress? Look at your roads, your houses, your crops. You are poor." The villagers felt sad. They worked hard every day, but the stranger only saw what was missing. The old man called the stranger to sit under the big baobab tree. The old man said, "Let me tell you about this tree. Its roots run deep, deeper than you can see. In the dry season, when the river dries up and the grass turns brown, the baobab still stands tall. Why? Because its roots find water where others cannot." The stranger was silent. The old man continued, "Our village may look poor to you, but our roots, our traditions, our love for each other, our hope, run deep. We survive the storms because we know who we are." The president finished his story and looked at the journalist. He said, "So, my sister, when you ask about progress, remember, it is not always what you see on the surface. True strength comes from deep within." The room was silent. The journalist lowered her microphone. The other reporters nodded, some with respect, some with wonder. In that moment, President Traoré had done more than answer a question. He had reminded everyone of the power of roots, of culture, of the stories that bind people together. He had shown that true leadership is not just about numbers or speeches, but about understanding, about wisdom, about knowing where you come from. But the story did not end there. After the press conference, the news spread fast. People in the city talked about it. People in the villages talked about it. The story was on the radio, on TV, on social media. Some people said the president was wise. Some said he was clever. But everyone agreed he had used the power of story to teach a lesson. In Africa, stories are not just for fun. They are for teaching. They are for sharing wisdom. They are for reminding us who we are. In the days that followed, the story grew. Elders told it to children. Teachers talked about it in schools. People in markets repeated the president's words. When the roots are deep, there is no reason to fear the wind. The phrase became popular. It was written on walls. It was printed on t-shirts. It was shared in songs. Young people made videos about it. Artists painted pictures of the baobab tree. The story became a symbol of hope. But there was more to the story. Some people wanted to know more about the president. Who was he? Where did he get his wisdom? People remembered that President Traoré grew up in a small village. He listened to stories from his grandmother. He learned about the history of his people. He saw the struggles of his family. He knew what it meant to be poor. He knew what it meant to work hard. He knew what it meant to hope for a better life. When he became president, he did not forget where he came from. He did not forget the stories. He did not forget the lessons of the baobab tree. The journalist who asked the hard question also learned something that day. After the press conference, she talked to people in the city. She visited the markets. She spoke to young people. She listened to their stories. She saw that life in Burkina Faso was not easy, but she also saw the strength of the people. She saw their smiles. She saw their kindness. She saw their hope. She wrote a new story, not just about problems, but about the spirit of the people. She wrote about the president's answer. She wrote about the baobab tree. Her story was read by people all over the world. The story of the press conference became a lesson for everyone. It was a lesson about respect. It was a lesson about listening. It was a lesson about the power of words. In Africa, people say that words can build or destroy. Words can heal or hurt. The president chose to use his words to build, to heal, to teach. He did not attack the journalist. He did not defend himself with anger. He used a story. He used wisdom. He used the power of roots. People in other countries also talked about the story. Leaders in other African countries shared the tale with their people. They said, "Look at Burkina Faso. Look at their president. Look at how he answered a hard question." Some leaders invited President Traoré to speak at their events. They wanted to hear more of his stories. They wanted to learn from his wisdom. The president became a symbol of hope, not just for his country, but for all of Africa. The story also reached people who had never heard of Burkina Faso before. People in Europe, in America, and Asia read about the press conference. Some were surprised. Some were inspired. Some wanted to learn more about African stories. They searched for tales about the baobab tree. They learned about the power of roots. They learned that true strength is not always about money or power. Sometimes, true strength is about knowing who you are. In Burkina Faso, the story changed the way people saw themselves. Young people felt proud. They felt strong. They felt connected to their roots. They started to ask their grandparents for more stories. They wanted to learn about their history. They wanted to know about the old ways. They wanted to understand the meaning of the baobab tree. Some young people started projects to help their communities. They cleaned the streets. They planted trees. They helped the elderly. They said, "We are the roots. We are the future." The story also changed the way people talked about problems. Instead of complaining, people started to look for solutions. They remembered the president's words. They remembered the story of the baobab tree. They said, "We can survive the storm. We can find water when others cannot. We are strong because our roots are deep." The story gave people hope. It gave them courage. It gave them a reason to keep going. The story of the press conference became a legend. It was told in many ways. Some people told it as a story about a wise president. Some told it as a story about a brave journalist. Some told it as a story about the power of African tales. But everyone agreed on one thing: the story was important. It was a story that needed to be shared. As time passed, the story continued to grow. It became part of the culture. It became part of the history. It became part of the identity of the people. The story was not just about one day or one person. It was about all of us. It was about the power of roots. It was about the power of stories. It was about the power of hope. If you ever feel lost, remember this story. If you ever feel weak, remember the baobab tree. If you ever feel alone, remember your roots. Remember that true strength comes from within. Remember that every person, every village, every country has a story worth telling. Remember that your story is your strength. This is the magic of African tales. They are not just stories. They are guides. They are lights in the darkness. They are roots that hold us steady. They teach us to look deeper, to value what cannot be seen, to respect the strength that comes from within. They remind us that every person, every village, every country has a story worth telling, a strength worth celebrating. So, as you go about your day, carry this story with you. Share it. Let it remind you that true progress is not always about what you can see, but about what lies beneath, the roots, the hope, the spirit that cannot be broken. This is the lesson of President Ibrahim Traoré. This is the lesson of the baobab tree. This is the lesson of Africa. Thank you for watching this story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to this channel. We share more stories like this. Stories that inspire. Stories that teach. Stories that connect us all. Hit the like button, leave a comment, and share this video with your friends. Remember, your story matters. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and see you in the next video.